You gotta check this out. You need to see this. Bloody hell, mate. Interrupting tea time. What is it? Bro, there is Crusaders in 40k.
No shit, Sherlock.
For God's sakes. Really? Yes, there's Crusaders. The Black Templars. I know, like literally, like what do you? How is this new? Like what? Like no. Like I mean, like actual Crusaders. Like they're taken from Schola and then they're trained. They're given arms and armor and shit, and they live like monks. And it's like the whole thing's like look here. Wait, what? Crusaders, Schola, Church, Shrine Gods. Protects pilgrims and by the Emperor. There are actually Crusaders in 40k. Yeah, I told you. Look at that! That shit's cool!
We will take Jerusalem!
Salutations Rangers, General Bradley 101 back at you again with some more
History Hammer.
The inaugural second episode. First one didn't do as well as I hoped, but the reception that I got from it was so grand, I was like, you know what, I'm going to keep on doing this and hopefully this video will just do really good. But enough of that, thank you for clicking, thank you for watching, let's crack on. So, in today's episode, we are talking about Crusaders. Now, this is something I found out relatively late into my 40k life. I only learnt about these guys like last year, and I've been into 40k for like 5 years, since I was like 17. And I gotta say, the lack of lore on these guys is criminal, especially with how close they are to their historical counterparts. Seriously, it is a crime. But more on that later. So, we're going to be covering the Crusaders of our time, the utter mess of events that were the Crusades, and then how these meme-worthy knights gave rise to the orders of the Holy God Emperor in 40k. But, as for right now, time for holy fervor, misplaced faith, and martial excellence. Let's take a look at the history of Crusaders.
We interrupt this program for an important news announcement.
Right, before we begin, I have listed my sources in the description if that's something you were concerned about. I thought about it and I really like the idea of it because I use peer review accredited sources anyway, so might as well list them. Anyway, back to the Crusades.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
To understand what a Crusader is, we must understand what a Crusade is. The word Crusade originates from the word crux, meaning cross. Crusade means to take up the cross, and a Crusader is one who takes up the cross. So, how did this clusterfuck of history happen? Well, like all clusterfucks, with a miscommunication. So, it's 1071. The Battle of Manteca has just been lost because the Romans can't help but fight each other, and that led to a 4-way civil war which lasted the better part of a decade. And when Alexios I took a look at his empire, it was like, oh yeah, it's missing like Anatolia, and then it's kind of sucky because like his empire of 2 continents now only has 1 continent, so you can't call it the empire on 2 continents. So he needed to do something, and he needed to do it quick. But he was a little short on everything really. Decade-long civil war would drain resources. So he called up his boy Pope Urban II, and he got to plotting. So there was 3 reasons as to why the Romans and the papacy wanted to join forces. Number 1, with all the war and changing borders, the pilgrimage route to Jerusalem was disturbed, to say the least, with accounts of banditry and other bad nonsense carrying on, as the routes were long held together by the cooperation between the Eastern Roman Empire and the Fatimid Caliphate. The former having lost all of the East in Eastern Rome, and the latter getting its ass handed to it by those egg makers of the Seljuk Sultanate. Numero dos. Eastern and Western churches split in the year 1054, so tensions between the East and Western Christianity were getting worse and worse. Not just between East and West though, as the 11th century had a lot of war in it, most famously the Battle of Hastings. So the Pope thought, what better way to get people to start hating each other than to give them someone new to hate? And the Romans had just the right guy in mind. And the last thing to tie up this trail, Islam had gotten to the gates of Constantinople, which was in Europe, which was a bit too close for most cross-loving people at the time. So pushing those jizya tax leveling lads back a bit sounded real good to everyone on the other side of the Bosphorus. Now, what people don't understand about the Crusades is that they were never intended to become what they became. They were meant for a few thousand Western knights to aid the Romans in the process of reclaiming Anatolia. What it ended up becoming was everyone and their mother in Western Europe believing that good God Almighty himself had called upon Joe the farmer over there to kill everyone who was not Christian. And if he did in fact do so, God would not only be happy, but he would give you a one-way ticket straight to heaven. Now, where would they get that funny idea from? This guy. Yeah, him. He did it. See, Urbi over here decided to hold the Council of Clermont on November 18th, 1095. which much of the clergy of France was gathered. Here he gave such a fire speech that all were convicted and spread the word like wildfire. As to what he said, we don't really know. But apparently he stressed the plight of the Eastern Christians, the molestation of pilgrims, and the desecration of holy places, which were true to some degree, but obviously he put a little bit of spice on there. He urged those who were guilty of disturbing the peace to turn from their warlike energies towards a holy cause. He emphasized the need for penance, along with the acceptance of suffering, and taught that no one should undertake this pilgrimage for any but the most exalted of motives. Now, to give Urban credit, he was shooting in the dark here. The East and the West did not like each other, like one bit. So, he had to make one hell of a speech and sweeten the deal. And oh boy, this bastard was an overachiever and a half. Jesus Christ. But as we all know, word spread, and as word spreads, it changes. And people change his word to mean kill anyone who was not Christian and you go to heaven, which a lot of people don't actually know. And this resulted in a massive massacres of everyone who was considered a heretic if you weren't a proper Catholic Christian, and even if you were not like to Jesus, you'll get at the stab. Especially the German Jewish populations, despite the best efforts of the bishops there to stop it. Foreshadowing's a bitch, huh? And a lot of people don't realize that crusades were called against anyone and everyone who the Catholic Church did not believe to be proper Christians. So there was a lot of Europeans killing other Europeans, which actually was the exact opposite of what the Pope wanted. Yeah, the Crusades were a bloody clusterfuck, huh? So overnight the whole West was in kill everyone who wasn't the good type of Christian mode, and for Deus Vult, for God wills it. And the rest, they say, is history. We're not going to be going over the Crusades here because it's not in our scope. There's a lot of them. There's like 120 of them over 500 years. I don't want to cover the Fourth Crusade because I don't want to cry. Fuck you, Venice, and your stupid Doge. So, we have established what a Crusader is. Someone who goes on a crusade. So does that mean that anyone can be a Crusader? Well, yes it does. You see, pop culture has associated the word Crusader with the monastic knightly orders that were founded in the wake of the First Crusade. It would be far more accurate to call them Crusader Knights or Templars. While one of the most famous orders, if not the most famous, the Knights Templar, are known for using that term, it is not exclusive to them as the term Templar. Templar means one who serves the temple, one who guards the temple, warrior of the temple, etc. And every order was founded on a temple, as every order was founded on a patron saint, which, had temples which they would guard. Too much? Okay, TLDR. Crusader, not really right, but not wrong either, so just use it either way. So, in the wake of the First Crusade, there were 5 major Crusader orders that were established, with there being about 35 recorded. Now, these 5 were the 3 most well-known, in addition to 2 that were not known. The 2 that were lesser known were the Ordo of Santiago and the Ordo of Calatrava. These were 2 Spanish orders that were founded primarily to aid in the Reconquista, as that was in full swing during the time. The 3 that were well-known and that were involved in the Crusade in the East were the Order of the Knights of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem, or the Knights Hospitaller. And we then have the Order of the Brothers of the German House of St. Mary in Jerusalem, or the Teutonic Knights. And finally, we have the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon, also known as the Order of Solomon's Temple, or the Knights Templar. Now, each of them were created for their own unique purpose, but all had one thing in common. They were the elite warriors of the West, like the most elite that the West had to offer. They were meant to care and protect for pilgrims to and from Jerusalem or wherever they were, and they were monks, swearing to chastity and piety, though some restrictions were looser depending on what order you were part of and what time period that order was in. But one thing was for certain, they hit hard, as most of them were tanks. I mean, knights. They were basically tanks. Fuck it, Crusader tank, baby! Woo! In terms of arms and armament, they operated in one of 2 fashions: a dismounted shield wall or a fully mounted shock cavalry. They would be armed with a gambeson, typically, and then over the gambeson they'd have full mail armor, including mail halberds, mail trousers, mail mittens, a mail gorget as well, then one variety of the plate helmets used. They would also wear a surcoat over that, and as we get later and later down the lines, particularly in the 14th century, we see the introduction of a coat of plates, as well as, metal spalders and gauntlets and pauldrons and whatnot. Chainmail was still predominantly the main form of protection, yet we see plate mail being incorporated more and more and more. As for weapons, if you were on foot, the shield wall was very common amongst Crusaders. There are many records of them just standing there for hours in the hot sun taking arrow fire. A shield wall with either a kite shield, was generally the most preferred. Heater shields were also used. Arming swords were very much used. But then again, also one-handed warhammers, maces, axes, etc. Lances if they were on horseback. And while, they're most known for sword and board, it's not out of the realm of possibility to assume that they use polearms of some variety. But they were elite knights. And they were very effective. But when they weren't making Ali the Saracen over there wish he had taken jihad off his resume, they were monks. And as monks, they felt the need to take care of people around them. They set up inns, all types of wood shops and fooderies, hospitals, banks, churches, and they were the precursor to the chivalric orders of the High Medieval Age. They were pious and strove to be true Christians, true examples of Christ. Christians mean to be Christ-like, so, there you go. BTW, while there's a lot of people who don't know, and fewer that will know, the iconic image of a crusader praying before battle, and what's even in the midst of blood and death being a paragon of virtue, is right on the money. Despite what pop culture would have you believe, while they were most definitely a soldier, that wasn't all they were. Many of them were troubled souls who sought to atone for their past wrongings and evildoings, hoping to help and make a better life. Now, while it's true that some of them were just, nobles looking for, more land and didn't really care how they got it, history is full of many different types of stories. And while there are stories of bad crusaders, there are stories of crusaders that are literally, if you didn't know any better, I think they were ripped from fiction. For many a pilgrim in the Holy Land owes their life to the sword of the crusader. And whilst you may question their actions and the results of it, you cannot question this: the ideals of the crusader. The pious warrior serving both God's will and his people is a thing of beauty indeed. Right, now time to throw the mold garbage out the window. It's purging time, baby! Woo! Time for 40k.
Escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by space.
So, the Crusaders are militant orders of elite trained soldiers, whose various orders serve the Church of the Emperor, and aid them in whatever they need, protecting pilgrims from shrine worlds, to leading the vanguard of crusades, to protecting high-ranking nobles and individuals such as inquisitors, clergymen, and rogue traders. They are literally Crusaders. This is a one-to-one translation. Like how? I mean, look here, James. I need more of this, way more. Seriously, the lacking of lore here, come on, GW. They're Crusaders, man. Okay, so there is one difference though. Between these and their IRL counterparts, they don't handle any admin stuff. They are 100% purely combat units. They fight, eat, pray, and not much else. They probably fuck. Because as like the Sororitas, they do not take vows of chastity, so have a ball with that, you fanfic degenerates. Speaking of the Sororitas, they're the only ones who are considered more faithful and devout than the Crusaders, which makes sense as the Crusaders have a more tactical mindset to them. They often have two main roles, either leading the charge or defending someone or something very important. Also, I imagine that they're less crazy than the gun nuns. That's just me though. So, a Crusader like the Sororitas is trained up in the Schola Progenium, an orphanage for children whose parents die in the Imperial military. This is where we get the elites that aren't like Space Marines, so Stormtroopers, Sororitas, Assassins, Crusaders. If a young man shows enough faith and combat prowess, he's taken to the Ordo Crusader. Now, it's not explicitly stated here, but it's implied that the Crusaders are the counterpoint to the Sororitas, with them being an all-male order of warrior monks and the Sororitas being an all-female order of warrior nuns. The Crusader houses are always smaller than the Sororitas though, because anything larger would breach the prohibition of the men under arms, as laid down in the Decree Passive that prohibited the ecclesiarchy from raising its own military forces, because Doge Vendai over there did one of the most worst things, just being the worst person in the universe, and then, seriously, he's a bad motherfucker. But when a Crusader is chosen, he is then trained in the Schola, then given his arms and armor. All of his gear is unique in that it is blessed by priests, and ordained with sacred oils and purity seals. They are very much anathema to demons, much like the sisters. If a lesser demon is near one of them, they're going to shun away from the holy light, because they're very much like paladins. But he is armed with a master-crafted power sword, storm shield, and while they eschew ranged weapons altogether, some have been known to carry pistols, or more often they have a ranged weapon integrated into the shield itself. Bolters, shotguns, grenade launchers, whatever, as well as master-crafted carapace armor, though some have even been known to be equipped with power armor. though these are usually the personal high guard of Inquisitors or rogue traders, but it's not unheard of. And while it's never stated, I personally believe that they are clad in solar auxilia pattern void armor plate. Come on, GW, give me back my love! They are expert melee combatants, producing the best melee warriors that unaugmented humans can offer. They excel in one-on-one duels or one versus many, with their shield walls and heavy armor of Crusaders being a stalwart bastion to protect their charges. And while many a time this has led to their deaths, the Crusaders would gladly give their lives so long as their duty is fulfilled. They train to serve the God Emperor, whatever his will may be, and once a Crusader has completed his training, he is then deployed either to a clergyman, inquisitor, or some high official, and if he proves himself capable, he will then be invited to join a Crusader house, an order of warrior monks, where they live pretty much like IRL Crusaders. Simple quarters where they pray, study, scripture, sleep, eat, train, until they are called upon to serve. These nightly houses can vary from a few dozen to a few thousand. The most notable amongst these are the Cardinals Crimson, which serve as bodyguards to high-ranking ecclesiarchy members. They can also form pilgrim bands where they travel from shrine wall to shrine wall delivering holy justice across the Imperium, usually with a priest at their head. These Crusader houses operate with a high degree of autonomy, and much like the Space Marines and the Sisters, one cannot demand their aid, but it can be asked. Also, we have the common case of certain houses making certain bonds, pacts, oaths with various Imperium factions. They are elite, trained and armed warriors, and they are found all over the Imperium. They serve regularly amongst the Imperial Guard and can also be found guarding shrine worlds and pilgrim worlds, defending the holy sites of the Emperor from the despoiling hands of the alien, the mutant and the heretic. None shall reach their charge so long as one Crusader lives, but where the Crusader truly shines is, well, in a crusade, where they are the vanguard, leading the armies of the Imperium forward, forming a stalwart bastion against evils that would dare to halt the righteous fury of the Emperor's Holy Church. Some Crusades at the behest of the Church will form a new bastion on shrine worlds, where Crusaders garrison bastion fortresses, adding both a spiritual and physical defense to the shrine worlds, there to guard and protect the pilgrims and the holy relics or whatever the ecclesiarchy has there. They form the front of the battle line. They can be a serious threat to lesser demons. I liken them akin to 40k's paladins, righteous warriors anathema to demonic evils, wielding mighty blades and banishing evil. It's just such a wonderful sight. Like hails of Lasgan erupting from behind a phalanx of paladins, purifying the very earth itself with righteous holy prayers and about smiting. The next time I do in D&D, I'm making a 40k theme but I'm adding paladins as Crusaders. God, that's gonna be good. All in all, Crusaders are, well, Crusaders. The only difference being that they don't do any admin. They are warriors in every sense of the word, and they give the Guard and the Imperium a whole solid line of melee bruisers that can smash down anything, and will stand to the last man. They are knights, and boy are they cool. Come on, GW, give me more of these fellas, big man! All in all, the main difference between IRL and 40k Crusaders is that while IRL Crusaders ventured more into civilian endeavors, they went into banking, they were monks, as well as merchants, administrators, all kinds of things. 40k Crusaders, on the other hand, are a pure beat stick. They are melee blenders to a T and not much else. The Crusades are a very divisive topic. And while we can all agree, massacres are always bad, no matter why they happen. There's never a good reason for a massacre. But like all things, while the reality may be dark, the idea is almost always beautiful. And the Crusader is a prime example of it. Like I always say, history is often stranger than reality, and there are definitely knights that fit the ideal of the Crusader. Despite what they were, the idea is real, and you can fulfill that idea by creating true Crusaders in your own IP, D&D game, book, whatever it may be. Besides, they are cool as shit. It's no wonder that they become so prominent in pop culture. The idea of it is so cool in every aspect. Crusaders are one of the best archetypes that there are, and they're just great. And in a place like 40k where you have God who hates religion and the 4 flavors of Space Satan, the idea of a Crusader Paladin, it doesn't just make sense, it's very much needed though. God, there really needs to be more Crusader stuff in 40k. But whether you crusade for God or the God Emperor or for pancakes, you can trust that when the call is sounded, the righteous orders of paladins will answer the call, and the Crusaders will form the vanguard. No matter where you look, be it fantasy, 40k or real life, the idea of a Crusader is the holy warrior, just and true, a true servant of God, a soldier without equal, blessed by God, defender of the weak and slayer of evil. He is a beacon of love, and the best thing you can see if you're good, and the worst nightmare you've ever had if you are evil. And beware, for they are anathema unto darkness, and woe betide anyone who would dare to conquer the innocent and just, for you shall find the shield of faith, followed by the sword of righteousness, wielded by a true bastion of good. goodness, a paladin of justice, a warrior of faith, a crusader, and beware, for God wills it. Right, that has been the Crusaders in 40k and in history. Thank you for watching episode 2 of History Hammer. I appreciate you, I love you. If you made it all the way to the end, you are the best person I've ever met. God, I love you. I want to give you a big ol' hug. You really don't understand how much it helps and how much it means to me that you guys watch all the way to the end. The only thing keeping me from getting monetized now is just watch time. And the more people watch to the end, the closer I get to that. And it's just mental to me that, I'm close to getting that happening. So remember, the best way to support is always to watch to the end. But if you're already doing that and you feel extra special generous and you can afford it, please make sure you can afford it. We have a Patreon where you can join for as little as $3 per month. And you will get a smashing access to the Discord, behind the scenes access, you get to vote on what videos we make, and you get to be involved in just, my own little world of how I make these stuff. From the $10 tier and up, you will get access to a personal voice recording of myself on whatever you want. Send me a script and I'll record it, so long as it's not anything bad, crazy, stupid, evil, or anything within that. But if committing yourself every month is a bit too much for you, and you just like to throw me $1 or $2 for saying thank you for the awesome video, check out buymeacoffee.com where you can hit me up with a donation, or subscribe there as well. You get the same benefits as per the Patreon. Now remember, first 20 people to sign up will get an exclusive audio drama for your eyes only. But as I said before, only do this if you can afford it. And remember, the best way to support is just watch the videos. But that has been me. I have been General Bradley 101. You have been beautiful, awesome, and amazing people. Remember, stay true out there, boys and gals. Thank y'all all so very much for watching, and I will catch y'all next time. Dismiss, Rangers. Oh yeah, by the way, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and drop down below your favorite Crusader in history of 40k. Once again, dismiss, Rangers. So pushing the jizya leaving lads. So pushing the jizya leveling lads. So pushing those jizya tax leveling lads back. So pushing those jizya fuck.